Imagine this: two employees, same role, same company. One earns $70,000, the other $85,000. The difference? One asked, the other didn't. Studies show that 60% of employees never negotiate their salary. That's a staggering number, considering negotiation can increase lifetime earnings by over $1 million. The silent salary gap exists because most people fear the conversation or simply don't know how to approach it. But here's the truth: negotiation isn't just about money, it's about valuing your worth. Why do so many avoid negotiation? Fear. Fear of rejection, fear of seeming greedy, fear of losing the offer altogether. A Harvard study found that 48% of job seekers avoid negotiation because they're uncomfortable discussing money. But here's what no one tells you: employers expect you to negotiate. In fact, 70% of hiring managers say they have some flexibility in their initial offer. The fear is often worse than the reality. Most negotiations end positively for both parties. Here's a psychological trick employers use: anchoring. The first number mentioned in a salary discussion sets the tone for the entire negotiation. Research shows that candidates who name the first number typically end up with higher salaries, but only if that number is realistic. A study from Columbia University found that anchoring can influence final offers by up to 15%. The key: do your research and be prepared to justify your number with data. Women negotiate salaries just as often as men, but face different outcomes. A study from the University of Texas found that women who negotiate are 30% more likely to be perceived as difficult or demanding. This bias contributes to the persistent gender pay gap. However, when women use collaborative language, we instead of I, and frame negotiations as problem-solving, success rates improve significantly. The truth: systemic bias exists, but strategic negotiation can help overcome it. When you negotiate matters as much as how you negotiate. Most people make the mistake of discussing salary too early, before demonstrating their value. Research shows that the best time to negotiate is after an offer is made but before you accept it. This is when you have maximum leverage. Another pro tip: avoid negotiating on Fridays. Studies indicate that people are more agreeable midweek when they're less fatigued. Salary isn't the only negotiable item. In fact, focusing solely on base pay leaves money on the table. Benefits like bonuses, stock options, remote work flexibility, and professional development budgets can be worth thousands annually. A LinkedIn survey found that 85% of hiring managers are open to negotiating non-salary benefits. The smartest negotiators create packages where they win in multiple areas, not just one number on a paycheck. The most powerful negotiators know when to walk away. Research from MIT shows that candidates willing to decline offers ultimately secure better compensation packages. This doesn't mean being combative, it means knowing your worth and having alternatives. The mere knowledge that you're willing to walk away increases your bargaining power by 40%, according to negotiation experts. The truth: sometimes the best negotiation tactic is the ability to say no. Here's a counterintuitive truth: the more you negotiate, the better you get, but most people wait for important negotiations to practice. FBI negotiation trainers reveal that regular, low-stakes practice, like negotiating bills or services, builds skills that translate to salary discussions. A University of Michigan study found that people who practiced negotiation in everyday situations achieved 25% better outcomes in high-stakes negotiations. The lesson: start small to win big. One of the most powerful negotiation tools costs nothing: silence. After making your case or receiving an offer, staying quiet for 3 to 5 seconds dramatically increases concession rates. Psychological studies show that people rush to fill silence, often with better terms. In salary negotiations, the first person to speak after an offer typically loses leverage. Professional negotiators report that strategic silence improves outcomes in 70% of cases. Sometimes, the most effective thing to say is nothing at all. Here's why today's negotiation matters more than you think. Every raise compounds over your career. A $5,000 increase now could mean $50,000 in lost earnings over a decade due to percentage-based raises. Research from Salary.com shows that employees who consistently negotiate earn 50% more over their careers than those who don't. The truth. One successful negotiation can set a higher baseline that pays dividends for years to come. The difference between successful and failed negotiations often comes down to one factor: preparation. A survey of 2,000 professionals revealed that those who spent 3+ hours preparing earned 10 to 20% higher salaries. Preparation includes researching market rates, knowing your unique value, and anticipating objections. FBI hostage negotiators spend 80% of their time preparing because when the moment comes, there's no time to think. The same principle applies to salary discussions. Negotiation power isn't about aggression, it's about alternatives. A Stanford study found that candidates with just one competing offer secured 7 to 15% higher salaries than those without options. This is called BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, and it's the single biggest predictor of negotiation success. The truth. You don't need to bluff, having real alternatives changes the entire dynamic in your favor. Human psychology plays a surprising role in negotiations. The principle of reciprocity, that people feel compelled to return favors, can be strategically used. When you make concessions, like accepting a lower base salary, you create psychological pressure for the employer to concede elsewhere, like better stock options. Harvard researchers found that negotiations using reciprocity tactics achieved 30% more value overall. The key: always get something in return for giving something up. Ever been told this is our final offer? Here's the truth: 64% of hiring managers admit they have additional flexibility even after claiming an offer is final. A LinkedIn survey revealed that candidates who politely pushed back on final offers improved their packages 40% of the time. The key is how you do it, expressing enthusiasm while asking if there's any flexibility on other aspects. Remember, final often means this is where we'd like to stop negotiating. The smartest negotiators think beyond the immediate offer. Building relationships matters more than squeezing every dollar from one negotiation. A Wharton study tracked professionals over 10 years and found that those who balanced assertiveness with relationship building earned 50% more over time. The truth. Today's negotiation is just one conversation in a career-long dialogue about your value. Play the long game, and the money will follow. Now that you know the truths nobody tells you, here's your action plan. First, research your market value using at least 3 sources. Second, practice your pitch with a friend. Third, identify your must-haves and nice-to-haves. Fourth, prepare responses to common objections. Fifth, plan your timing strategically. And finally, remember that negotiation is a normal part of business, not a confrontation. Armed with these truths, you're ready to negotiate with confidence.